our goal is to make music that's interesting to us.
You guys have been around, man. And after almost a quarter of a century, over 20 years, there still are new places to play and new sounds to create. Being considered pioneers of a type of sound in America, was it always about breaking ground? Is it still about breaking ground?
To us, it's always been more important to just challenge ourselves. And if that meant that we did break some new ground, that's okay, but it's not really our goal. I mean, our goal is to make music that's interesting to us. And so along the way, we've made some pretty unusual records and done some strange things musically, but it was mostly to like challenge ourselves and say like, you know, wow, wouldn't it be crazy if this song went here or there, or like try different things. So it wasn't a conscious decision to try and be the most groundbreaking band or anything. It's just us being us, kind of, you know.
But some people call you pioneers in the genre post-rock. I've heard Barry Burns from Mogwai before. Band.
Which one is he? Guitar player?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he spoke in an interview once about being labeled post-rock. And they state their indifference to that identification. Did you used to identify with that label more so back then, before it became much perceived as pieces with dramatic crescendos and those loud and quiet and loud shifts, much like Mogwai is like?
We didn't really identify with that label so much. I think we Tortoise realized that we had some things in common with some bands that were starting to happen right around that time. And I think we do have things in common with Mogwai and, you know, Slint. And then we have other aspects of what we do that are completely different than what those kinds of bands do. And like when somebody like Barry would say like, well, we don't really identify with that sound, I understand what he's saying. Like, it's kind of limiting to have a label placed on you and have this preconceived notion of what your music is supposed to sound like based on this terminology. And so we've always sort of shied away from that term. I mean, we don't use it to describe ourselves, but at the same time, we don't really know how to describe ourselves.
I guess it's kind of interesting, isn't it? At that time, 1990, early 1990s, you know, punk was really strong. The traditional rock was still really quite dominant.
Yeah.
And then comes this instrumental band that was more crowd rock and more groovy and things like that. I guess it made sense back then to call something post-rock.
Yeah.
It's just that,
I mean, there are some truths if you think of the term post-rock and what it is meant to say, is that we were definitely trying to push ourselves out of the mold of the bands that we had been playing in before Tortoise. Not because we didn't like that music, but we just wanted to push ourselves in a different direction and try to find some new things to do. And I understand the term post-rock to describe that idea, to try and expand on the rock music that we had already been playing for a while in different bands. But I mean, some people just call that progressive rock, prog rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, those are all just terms to us. It doesn't really matter what people call us.
It really isn't much of an identification, is it? What is one of the in-jokes of your song titles? I'm sorry to make you try and recall.
Well, there's one song that's the actual working title for the song was Untitled, and we just spelled Untitled backwards.
Great.
So that's the first one I can think of off the top of my head.
Cool. Okay, like this is your first time in Malaysia, man. We've been waiting for you. After 3 times you guys have went to Singapore.
Yeah.
And finally you're here.
I know.
What was the first thought you had when hearing about your stop here in Malaysia? Or if you can't think of anything, what did you have in mind for Southeast Asia? What did you imagine Southeast Asia to be?
Well, mostly I just think of food.
We're not too far off.
But, you know, I know the food is great here. But, I don't know. It's just good to go someplace that you've never been before and be there. That's all.
Yeah, just figure it out once
Yeah.
you're here.
I mean, I'm sure it would be much better if I was going to be here for more than one day.
I'm sorry, you're going to be in a lot of places for one day.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Doug.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.